Sorry, we gotta get that going again.
That's okay. And my whole family followed me here. I actually followed one of my family members and the rest of them.
I'm Britta Mansfield. I've met some of you around the table. Rachel's a good friend of mine. So Rachel and I actually have worked on Newberg Street projects for close to 10 years, 8, I think, officially.
Long time.
I love history. I live in Newberg. I work with the Land That Falls and Land Use Heritage Area Coalition. They're a historic preservation focused organization. I'm on the board of the local historical society. I think that's all the pertinent. So I just wrote a book about Newberg history, so that's kind of fun. Wrote a book is a loose term, but glad to be here. This is my first term as a commissioner, so excited to see what this is all about.
And my name's Clay Downing. I'm the planning manager for the city, so I'm the staff liaison for the planning commission. And I help out with a bunch of other stuff, mostly through our community development department, and looking forward to having Rachel jump into the Historic Preservation Commission. Wasn't particularly involved while Doug was here, but tried to get at least more informed before he retired last November. And wanted to mention too, that we have a new community development director that just started a couple of weeks ago, which is very exciting because I was serving as interim. So extra exciting for me. And yeah, really looking forward to helping and making sure everyone's got what they need for this commission.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all. I was realizing we have met several times. Yes, and then Curry is joining us from Oregon Heritage, which is a division of Oregon State Parks and Recreation, the State Historic Preservation Office. Curry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Curry Gill. I'm the Grants and Outreach Manager for Oregon Heritage, and tonight I'll be talking about, we are based in Salem, and I'm here to talk with you tonight about the Certified Local Government Program, which is a federal program managed by the State Historic Preservation Office, and I'm the primary coordinator for that program.
And my former boss, so I was having a fun time laughing at that today. So yeah. So the next thing order on our agenda is to elect the chair and vice chair, so I can stop leading the meeting and we can let someone else move on from there. So let's open that up and have a discussion about any nominations. Anyone like to self-nominate or nominate someone else?
Pretty bad. I don't think anybody's gonna do it.
Promise I'm here to make your life easy on that.
I'll throw it. I happily serve as vice chair. I would normally happily serve as chair, but I'm quite busy and this is my first commission appointment. I'd rather not take that on as first time, but happy to be the vice chair.
I'll nominate Britta Mansfield as our vice chair.
Okay, so we have a nomination for vice chair. Okay.
Can't nominate.
I'm trying to remember. No, thank you.
No, the liaisons don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
power.
so sad. Sorry. And then seconded by Deborah. Okay. So we can vote on that. So all in favor of nominating Britta as vice chair of the Historic Preservation Commission?
No.
No, you can vote for yourself. You're allowed to vote for yourself. And oppose? No. So unanimous. All right, now we got to figure out which one of you three is going to be our chair. Or do we nominate someone who's not here? I'm just, no. That wouldn't be very good.
Didn't show up.
I saw some fingers pointing and
I guess that's a nomination. There you go.
okay. Would you accept that nomination? Okay. So we have who's going to be the first here to make the motion to nominate Bob Woodruff as chair. Okay, so we'll let Deb do first, and second will be, I think you seconded before. Yes, there we go. We'll get that.
Second.
Yeah,
So
we'll get there. This one, we're allowed to be a little more laid back. If this is at city council, I'd call you guys out and make you do this very, very formally, but this is, yeah, we are allowed to be a little more laid back. All right, so then I'll make, well, you're the vice chair now, so you can call the vote.
Oh.
There we
well,
go.
then Call for vote, vote, all in favor? Any opposed? There we go.
All right, thank you. Well, congratulations, chair and vice chair, welcome. All right, well, with that, our next item of business is a presentation from Curry on the certified local government.
All right. Well, hi, Chair and Vice Chair and Commission, thanks for having me. So I really wanted to just start this actually with a little bit of an overview of what the Certified Local Government Grant Program is. So please feel free to raise your hand and interrupt if you have questions. I didn't do this as a PowerPoint because it's a lot of words. And then I'm happy to share some examples of what I have seen certified local governments do, if that's helpful. But I think just understanding what this program is and how it works and sort of what the expectations from the program's perspective is for you all is kind of the primary purpose of my time here today. And then there's more to come. So first I will say that as a certified local government, your organization gets lots of support from our office, from the State Historic Preservation Office. We really believe in the local preservation programs because you all know your communities, you know your historic resources, you know what people care about and how to talk to them, or how to, build the relationships to encourage people to appreciate it, just know the historic places and then also build the appreciation for them. Certainly much better than we would do coming in as the state, not having those relationships and that community connection. So we really believe in this program. Our whole staff supports this program. And so we have been talking with city staff about some ongoing orientation. And so you'll see other people from our office with that. So we are here with you. We love that you exist and that you're doing this work in your community. And I'll go into a little bit more about what that means now. So as I mentioned, the Certified Local Government Program is a federal program of the National Park Service. All states have a historic preservation office, as do tribes and many the principalities and the other countries who have relationships with us can participate in this. So this is a program that is seen in many states. There is a basic structure for it that the National Park Service requires, and then some states can add additional structure. We tend to have just the base requirements in Oregon because we really want that local participation. But if you came from a state like Georgia, they have really, really high requirements for participation in their certified local government program, meaning a lot of regulation and designation of properties that are have a lot of historic character intact. So it's different everywhere. So if you've been in another state, you might have a different experience than what's happening in Oregon. Part of the role of the State Historic Preservation Office is to implement the programs of the Historic Preservation Act. And some of those include federal cultural resource protections, And then probably the one people know most is the National Register of Historic Places. There's also a federal historic tax credit program for preservation on income producing properties. And those are all federal programs, but they are coordinated locally on the state level through our office. To help us do that, we do get funding from the Historic Preservation Fund. And a portion of that funding we are required to pass through to our certified local governments. So in the past, Newberg has done a couple of different projects, some survey projects and some public education projects that were funded with the certified local government grant dollars. And I'll talk a little bit more about that grant program in a few minutes when we get past this higher level information. As I said, in Oregon, we really care about this program. We're required to give at least 10% of our funds to the certified local governments, but in Oregon, we do about 25% each year of the funds that we get. So we do pass it through. However, we do have a lot of CLGs in Oregon. We have about 57 CLGs, certified local governments, and they are all eligible for the grant programs. So we are spreading that money out, but there's still some good work that can be done with the funding that we have available. So that's kind of the structure of the program. The purpose of the program really is to encourage local communities to research their historic places, determine what's historically significant, what still has its historic character, designate either locally or through the National Register to give additional acknowledgement about that significance and that historic character. Implement programs to protect that historic character. And then to really, the biggest one is to really promote the value and get the community engaged with those historic resources. With this program, it's very place-based. So it's not general history. You have a historical society, collecting the history of humans is really important, but for the preservation program, those places are the critical thing to think about, to focus on with the preservation program and the funding that we have available. So that's the big structure. There are requirements to participate in the program. I guess, are there questions about that structure? I'll take a pause and a breather.
I guess one question I have is city staff. I'm new enough, I don't know, are we currently a certified local government?
Yes, we are.
Yes. Yep.
We got through that hurdle already, so.
But that's a good question, just to make sure everyone's on the same
Yeah.
page.
It is, absolutely.
Question then, knowing that, Curry, you mentioned that Newberg's gotten some money and done some projects in the past. How active has Newberg been in this program?
So, pretty active until like a year and a half ago. So there was a grant project that ended up being canceled, partly due to staff transition and changed priorities, I think. But up until that point, they were so CLGs can apply every year, and they were applying pretty much every time that they could to do some project or other.
Thank you.
All right. So, there are some requirements. So Newberg is a CLG. You're helping them as the volunteers that you are helping the city be able to be a certified local government. Having the commissioner board in place is a requirement. I think Rachel mentioned at the beginning before the meeting started that there is a requirement of at least 4 meetings a year for that body. Having a list of historic resources, whether it's one from the state or you have that list locally, which you do have locally, that is a requirement. Having a local designation process, so that would be in your code, in your ordinance associated with the city and the preservation program. So that's a required piece. And then if you do have a regulatory program associated with that local designation, that it meets preservation standards and that your program follows state and federal law. So that's the high level requirement to participate. And then you get help from our office. We can provide training, advice, talking through planning, and then the grant funding. And the grant funding can be used for lots and lots of things, including hiring consultants or people to do the survey work or the research work, to do nominations, either locally or National Register, to do public engagement activities, walking tour brochures, story maps we've seen people do. Having a preservation award program is always really great. That goes an amazingly long way. People like to be awarded. So kind of all the ways you can think of to research, designate, preserve. You can do pass-through grants, you can do planning grants, you can do structural assessments on historic properties. So research, designate, preserve, and educate people about historic places. The thing that I am most asked about is if we can fund signs or interpretive panels, and we cannot. It is something that I every year ask the National Park Service to change. I am hopeful to be successful at that point, because one of the people that I talk to says she wants to do it before she retires. So maybe it will happen. But that is the one thing that cannot be funded by the grant program. I see a lot of our commissions or boards really only focusing on the regulatory piece of their work. So if you have locally designated properties and they have projects that require a design review process, that is what they're focusing on. But really that local promotion of historic places is the primary thing, because if you don't continue to do that, people will decide that it's not worth having the protections in place for them. So we have seen long time, well-known historic places at risk of that because people didn't do the ongoing promotion about the value. So that's an area where we really try to provide additional support and encouragement around that public education, public engagement piece. So that's sort of the big picture. Are there questions following that? The requirements and benefits, I guess.
I guess it's just curiosity. It doesn't really impact our work, but why are they resistant to funding signs? If one of the goals is to promote awareness, why don't they?
Yeah. So I think it's an old history thing. So most of this was created almost 50 years ago now. And back then they wanted to make sure that the funding was going toward preservation of historic properties and not exhibits in historic houses. They were trying to not fund that. And so they did this blanket, no interpretation, no signage rule. And it's something that people have been complaining about ever since. Like
Yeah.
even even having like the National Register signs on houses, or the like street sign toppers for the historic districts, those are not fundable either, but they absolutely promote those historic places. So
And I'll let you keep going, but just another thought. So it doesn't fund signing. If we were to look, I love the idea of an awards program. You know, I lived in Charleston, South Carolina for 8 years, and the Carolopoulos Award was a big thing there. And is there funding for doing some sort of similar program?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
yeah. So not
absolutely.
directly the signs, but the recognition program.
Well, and here is a tip for that. The
Yeah.
sign, you can give an award, and that award can essentially be a sign that they can then put on their house.
It's an
But if
award.
you call it an award, then it's funded.
That is to mention the word
Yeah.
historic
Mhm.
place,
Yeah. So, in thinking about the grant program, you have some newer members, you know, COVID happened, the world has happened. It feels like, you're getting a little bit of regrouping going. So the applications, for the grant program, happen around this time every year. So, and you're eligible every other year. So you didn't apply this year, which I think is fine, because you have some time to get some more orientation, do a little bit of planning, and actually it will be great. By this time next year, you'll have some stuff you want to do and be able to set some priorities for that, and then be able to apply next year. So, and then you could, the cool thing about this grant program is it's non-competitive. So every time you're eligible, or the city is eligible to apply, I will let the city know and let them know how much we have to award for each community. And then as long as it's a fundable project that has a reasonable budget and a reasonable timeline, it will be funded. So you can plan, you could do a 6-year plan and know that every other year you're going to have between $8,000 and $15,000, depending on what's appropriated from the federal legislature. Lately it's been more in the range of 12,000. But that way you can, you know, if there's like, you're thinking there's an area of town that we don't know anything about, so we want to survey that. And then based on that, we might want to try to list 2 properties from that area of town. And then we want to do some promotion of those. That could be kind of your 6-year plan, right? So, you know, you can count on that. If you're a city that can get some budget for it to manage that, then that's really cool too, because then you can enhance it even more. But that's one of the things I really like about how we manage the grant program is it's not competitive. So Newberg gets the same amount as Portland, as Salem, as Albany, as Jacksonville, and you can get a lot done if you do some good planning that way.
With that funding, so it's every 2-year funding, you said it averages about $12,000. Is there a requirement for a match or anything from the city, or?
There is a match requirement. It can be, it's a 1-to-1 match, but it can be the staff and volunteer time. So generally a city the size of Newberg, just doing their program with the amount of staff time and volunteer time that takes, usually that alone can be the match for whatever funding they're requesting. So it takes time for staff to track that, but it is not hard to come up with match for this program.
Especially when we're giving you 2 staff members a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how do they calculate volunteer hours then? I mean, these guys are getting paid, but how do
Mhm.
they calculate like my time in that?
So, if you're doing something related to your profession, or if you're retired, your former profession, you can use your professional rate. If you're not doing work related to your profession, then it is Oregon minimum wage for where in Oregon you are.
Is there an annual report or something that summarizes what has been done by the commission?
An annual report that summarizes what's been done by all
Yeah.
the CLGs in the state?
Exactly, yes.
No, that would be a really cool thing to do if I had time to do that, but no,
But
there
listen,
is not.
I just think it'd be very interesting to see best practices. What are other CLGs doing?
Mhm.
You know, what have they accomplished?
You can certainly check out, we do post the list of grant awards, so you could see what is funded, what projects they use the grant to fund. And that is on our website.
Okay.
And I can show you, I did pull up the web page so you can kind of see a little bit of what we have on there. So I'll do that really quick.
Well, Curry's
Um,
pulling that up. But I was gonna say there's they offer some great conferences throughout the year too that we can consider sending members of this commission to. Britta and I've attended one and presented at one in the past. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they I forgot about that. But there's some really great conferences that can help give us ideas as well. That's something we can look into.
And we do have one of those. Thank you, Rachel. I was going to say it at the end, coming up in April, just in Forest Grove. So it's pretty close by. And it's going to be really great. So this is our website, OregonHeritage.org. And under designate, we have certified local government. And you can see the other CLGs here. This Become a CLG has the list of the requirements and benefits that we talked about. This has some general information about planning, about Oregon land use stuff, preservation month ideas. So all kinds of resources here, some national organizations to look into for resources. I highly recommend the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. That is the most practical conference I've ever attended in my life. It is so good. And it is not just for the Raleigh, North Carolinas of the world. It is for all sizes of communities. They have a forum every other year. And the CLG grant funding can also help pay for this, for training and sending people to conferences. But their next one is this coming July. It's going to be clear in Florida, but it moves around the state and it's every other year. So I do highly, highly recommend that. But also, the city can join them and they have really great publications, a good listserv. Just, it's a great organization and lots of awesome training as well that they offer. And then the grant information is here. So you can find information about the grant program there. And then, wow, I might have forgotten to post it this time, the last year's grant awards. Let me go look in this other spot just to see. I have the 2022s up there, but not the 2023s. So, so those are options. And then we have tons of other really great resources on our website. And if you go to our home page, you can get to the conference information at the bottom here. Right here.
Well,
And
we just had a quick little side conversation. I asked Britta if her work would qualify her for professional rate for this meeting time. And it sounds like it probably would. You know, it's not a lot of money, but if we're only trying to match, 12,000 is a lot of money, but your staff time adds up pretty quickly. You know, I'm only gonna give you a minimum wage, but 4 meetings, minimum wage plus a little extra, we'll be able to give a contribution
Yeah.
towards that 12,000.
Well,
Exactly.
if there's anything that's done outside of these meetings
Yeah,
too, so
yeah.
the work that you all take on in some capacity or what have you, then
Mhm.
those sorts of things could be contributed to.
If somebody were to go to one of these,
Or maybe it's
Convention.
organizing or helping write a grant proposal
Yeah.
or any of those
That was my
things.
next question, thinking about this grant, who actually does the grant writing for this?
Mhm. So we can do that as a committee, or we can work, have city staff work on it. That would be based on city staff capacity, of course. But that's the only reason we didn't go after it this year is it's due yesterday and a couple days ago, and it was not going to happen this year. But that's something that we would work with you on. But staff can work in drafting things and getting things moving.
And especially if this commission assigns one commissioner to take the lead role to work with staff figures out bandwidth and all that, then you've got something working on, and you don't have to have a bunch of meetings that can really gobble up time pretty quickly.
Right.
And then that person brings back the application maybe for a check with the rest of everyone to make sure, either say, hey, we did it, or say, this is what we've got tentatively, how's everyone feel about it? Those sorts of things are very doable.
Well, Curry, do you have anything else for us?
No, just thanks for your time. I think, once you get some other orientation going, I'm happy to come have some more conversation about plans you might have or things you might be interested in. And then I also wanted to mention this program is a really great way for the city to also support the other work happening in the community. We see a lot of CLGs partner with the Main Street organizations. Main Street is such a cool resource and has done some good stuff in Newberg in the past. So like an example of what I've seen Main Street's partner with is they do facade, like the CLG will fund with the grant facade designs for properties that have been altered and they want to bring back the historic character. City of Cottage Grove did that for a bunch of properties. And then during May Preservation Month, they did a display in the library and talked about preservation there. And then they gave the plans to the property owners, and they have since had 3 of those property owners do the work on the buildings. So the inspiration, like helping see that it's possible, helping see what it can be, is a really cool thing to be able to do. You have Historical Society, so thinking about sort of the goals that they have, I mentioned like story maps or online apps related to tourism so people can access information about the sites where they're going to be. That might be something that would meet both missions. So thinking about what else is happening in the community and how you can help use this to maybe leverage some of their work as well. We've seen a lot of CLGs do that really well. So be open to possibilities. There are some things that we can't fund. I'm always happy to talk about ideas and be available for questions for folks.
And if we can think about the fact that we had a successful funded grant that was in place that we withdrew, we've got something actually designed already. So there's some reasons we'd probably want to rework that, but there are options on the table. So.
And thanks for volunteering your time for your community.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Just a random thought, while she was mentioning maps, a dream of mine, we're the Camellia City. And last year I volunteered at the Camellia Festival, and probably the #1 question that people ask, every year they read in the newspaper that there are camellias around town that date back to the 40s.
Mhm.
Where are they?
There is a map actually of that.
Yeah.
Yep,
It's
but
a little bit out
can
there,
we help promote?
and I'd like to
Yeah.
really expand that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
accessible, we could match some of the modern branding. That'd be a great
Yeah.
project.
That's cool.
I don't know, really it's with trees.
Mhm.
We have some historic trees and God, just different areas. And I know that's.
I was thinking of that this morning though, actually. No.
But yeah, I think that's an awesome.
I'm laughing because I had that exact thought this morning. You know, we should just map all the historic trees and we know where they are all throughout town.
The initial, I guess this is our initial ordinance, right? And
Mhm.
it seems to include sites. It says
Yep.
sites,
Yep.
areas of historical interest,
Mhm.
properties, and, you know, that seems to encompass just about everything.
Yeah. Yeah, the ordinance and that form this committee is very broad in a lot of ways, which is great. It gives us a lot of flexibility and things we can do. So there's a lot of really neat opportunities there. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation. We can pull up the previous work plan and 5-year plan that was created if you guys would like to look at that again. I know we had a presentation on it last meeting, but I have it ready to go again. But just want to give Curry the option to run away if she wants to, or you're welcome to sit and listen, but I know how busy you are.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, everybody, tonight.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Unless she wants to earn more comp time.
Right.
We got 1.5 comp time for everything outside of our normal work hours when I was there. It was so nice. Even if you didn't go above 40, it was outside
Seems
your
like that
normal
went
hours.
fast.
Yeah, it was really nice.
So we get time and a half from you.
Yeah, I'll give you 1.5 time. I will pay you
Time
1.5 time. You're going great. Yeah. No, neither of us get that because unfortunately we're, exempt. All right. So the next thing on the agenda is just discussion of goals. And we started into that already. So if you guys want to start chatting, I'll pull up the 5-year plan so we can look at what past goals were. But I'd love to let you guys just chat. And I will let the chair take over in future meetings, but I figure I won't throw the whole agenda at you this meeting.
I
Unless
appreciate
you
it
want
very
to,
much.
yeah.
Chuck, because you weren't at our last meeting, were you there? No, okay, then you weren't there.
No.
So at our last meeting, we reviewed our 5-year work plan. But between the staffing changes and, some changes in direction from the city. And now especially with Rick not on the commission, even before when he was still on with the last meeting, the word we kept using was reboot, like we were at a time of kind of resetting. So, yeah, it'll be good, I think our first order of business is, and we're not gonna get it completed in this meeting, is to come up with some action steps and kind of a vision of where we want to go. Nothing is, in depth as a 5-year work plan,
Mhm.
but yeah, what are our immediate and long-term goals?
A matter of process, Rachel, is it possible to do work sessions that are, I don't know if that has to be publicly
Mhm.
recorded or what that looks like.
Yeah, we can do work sessions. We still have to make them public meetings if we're all at them. We can do some limited training without making it a full public meeting, but if anytime there's deliberation or discussion, it has to be public. But this is the main part of my job is running public meetings, so it's not that difficult to do and I can set up a public meeting. To follow public meeting law, we have to give at least 48 hours of notice before we hold a meeting. Council has asked that we try for at least a week, just for more transparency, which I think is very reasonable. But other than that, it's not too difficult to throw together a meeting. A lot of it will just be based on capacity. Now, if a subgroup that was less than a quorum was working on something, then you have some flexibility there. So, yeah.
So who are we missing?
I was gonna pull.
You're missing Joy or Joya, I believe. And I think the other seat's vacant.
So we do not have a student commissioner at the moment. And then we're missing
Joy.
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 Yeah.
So our student guy not.
He left for college after saying he loved it. Yeah.
Is that student or practice?
high school or college
Or
student.
college.
Then the difference between a college student serving on a commission and just being an adult, because they're over 18, is that if as long as they're a student at one of our local colleges, they can serve even if they're not primarily a Newberg resident. So that's the big difference there. I actually met with the George Fox class today and begged them all to apply, so we might get someone. And I met with the high school class last month and did the same thing. So I'm working very hard to get student commissioners to apply.
Joy's last.
Let me find that one. Joy Hughes,
Thank
yes,
you.
thank you. I forgot to print out my normal information sheet for meetings, so forgive me if I'm scrambling to look things up really quickly. I was so excited to meet with you all today.
I don't know where I heard this, but it was obviously a rumor, but it may have been right around when I discovered that Rick wasn't gonna be here anymore.
Mhm.
But there was even some talk of disbanding this. Maybe is that
Yeah.
something? that's
So
around?
I think there was a rumor about that when the grant project was ended. So the grant project was ended because, and our city manager shared this at our last meeting. It was ended because he felt there hadn't been enough community participation in the project and he wanted more community outreach involved.
Can you know what was that project?
It was to create a historic designation for the downtown.
Okay.
And my feeling, and this is coming from the planning side, 'cause
Uh-huh.
the community development department wrote the grant proposal.
Mhm.
If the project and the project description had talked more about the outreach and study of the feasibility of something,
Mhm.
I think there would have been less. People would have been more comfortable with it because it kind of seemed like the way that it was written, it was a bit of a foregone conclusion. We're gonna do outreach and then we'll just establish it. As opposed to, we're gonna do outreach to see if there is interest in a historic district.
And there was
And
concern
that messaging
that,
made a significant difference.
yeah,
Property owners can be very sensitive about
Yes.
saying,
Well,
you're gonna hamper my private property rights.
yes.
You're gonna hamper what I can do with my property, make it harder for me just to have this place that they may really care strongly about.
so that was the thought there. I will let you know that our city manager Will has history degrees and loves history. He and I nerd out about it all the time. That's my background as well. I've got, my degrees are both in history. I taught history at George Fox for a while and worked in archives for a long time. So it's something we love. And if anything, we want to see more come out of this commission. So we,
And the other part of that I would also add is, we were down to 2 staff out of 5 in the department at the time. So we also didn't have the bandwidth
Right.
to administer a grant, to hire a consultant, even if they were doing most of the work. We didn't have the administrators, we didn't have the bandwidth to do it. So that was also a contributing factor, and so it was made the decision to pull it, but we do still have those application materials and doing something that is a rewrite that reflects what we want it to be. Probably wouldn't require a lot of work, if it's the priority that your commission would like to work with staff to put forward.
and it would be
That's a good thing.
it would be an act of council to disband this commission too.
That's right.
It's not something the city manager can decide or anyone else. It's the council would decide. And I haven't heard any talk that we don't want to do this anymore, so.
So, Robin, do we have any guidance or marching orders from council on what council wants for historic preservation?
No, in fact, that's been a discussion. It's not one of our goals, but I know, we're all interested in preserving, so
Okay,
Mhm.
but nothing to kind of give us focus on,
no.
because, okay,
Hasn't come up.
we could just say, hey, let's rewrite and just carry on with where we were,
Mhm.
but without direction from city council or us deciding like, maybe that's not where we want to go.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to go in a whole nother direction.
Mhm.
And a suggestion that I might have and this might be hard for us to do right now this evening, but to look at your work program that already went through, and this was vetted by the Historic Preservation Commission, talking to each other for a year to create this, taking it to city council, and I don't remember what year, if that was 22, 21.
I think
Maybe it's
22.
But comparing that against city council.
Oh, 21, actually,
So
sorry.
city council's goals are written such that there are high level goals and there are specific objectives under each one of them. And so even if you don't meet the specific objectives that they have under those goals, it might be worth saying, well, does any of the stuff that we find to be priorities fulfill some of the things that the city council's identified as goals as well? And see if there's a bit of a thing to make sure you're not getting crosswise, or to kind of pick, because there are 6 items on the work program. And I don't know how your commission feels about it as far as what seems like low hanging fruit, although
Yeah.
one of the items is complete.
Yeah.
And so that first one, that mapping, working with George Fox University and partnering on the mapping our history project.
I was the George Fox side of that project actually, so, and that was in 2021. I was just thinking about that. It wrapped up in 22. The other thing to think about, so while there is not specific direction from council, the ordinance that established this commission does go over kind of the powers and duties. So, and I'll send that out again, just if anyone wants to look at it again. But that gives us a good idea of what you can do.
Mhm.
So just looking at the work program that was presented to council. So this was presented to council in, does it actually say in here?
It should, I have one that was an RCA.
It's interesting. It just says, it's an RCA. It just says January.
Calendar year 21.
Oh, you see that? Okay, thanks. It's, oh, you know
that's the
what?
one that wasn't, let's see if I.
Yep,
found it.
it's all right. This, it does have the full plan. Oh yeah, it does say calendar year 21. Here, so spent calendar year 2021, and then they made the 5-year work plan at that time. So, so I mean, we are 3 years into that 5-year work plan now. So the George Fox project, mapping our history project, was completed and is available through the George Fox website, and I think the city website as well. It was for a while. I'm not sure if it is anymore.
It's very useful if you haven't.
I was gonna say, it's on the website, but I think we were able to find it. So is the sidewalk historic assets mapping is somewhere
Yep.
in there, but they're not consolidated in a way that probably is user friendly, but most of the websites.
So the entire city website's being redone right now. So if any of our goals are related to making historical information easier to find on the city website, that's a really good thing to work on right now.
I agree. And I think also educating the property owners of
Mhm,
what kind of, structure they have, what their obligations are.
mhm.
I'm not sure that everybody is well aware.
Yeah.
And what their opportunities are, because I could be
Exactly.
wrong. Wasn't the work done on the facade of chapters? Wasn't that through the Main Street program?
Yeah, that was a
So
diamond in the
that's
rough grant.
Just slam dunk example of what historic preservation money can help do for
Right.
a building.
And on the high priority items, the coordination with the Newberg Downtown Coalition on Main Street initiatives and building facade restoration are there.
Mhm.
And one of the communications that was sent to Curry with the state parks was asking them to do additional training this year, because we were talked about in that last meeting that we had with the commission. That was kind of a reset. So we thought training would be there, and facade restoration was one of the things we asked for more information about.
So they will have a member of their team at each of our meetings this year so far.
Who is they?
Ship up.
Ship
Yeah,
Up,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. So they will have someone coming to do a talk similar to Curry's or on their specific topic at each
And-
meeting. We've
And that's
scheduled
one of the
that.
goals that you had. It's just not one of the higher priority ones. So that's that CLG trainings.
Mhm.
So we said, well, that's an easy one. All we have to do is ask and get it scheduled.
Yep.
And that doesn't necessarily fulfill it completely. We decide when it's fulfilled.
Yeah.
Your commission does, but at least we can start that road and make sure you're receiving this.
So the second item on this list, which is the historic district designation, that was the project, the grant funded that we paused.
Mhm.
So we still have all the application materials for that. It's a good project. We might want to look at it and rework it a little bit, like Clay was saying. Let's make it more of a feasibility study, include the voices of the people who will be affected by it, make sure that they have a say. And then coordination with Downtown Coalition on, I see 3 and 6 is very similar because it's a lot of the work, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same.
Right.
The historic inventory, are you guys familiar with the Newberg's historic inventory? Okay, I was like, do I need to explain this? Good.
It could use update.
Yes,
This is great.
it
And it's
definitely
actually more user friendly online. I mean, I got a historical site request yesterday from somebody who wanted to know about their own building. And that's great. I'm glad people are interested. It still takes a lot of time digging into that inventory to find anything. So
It really
if there's
does.
a community and user friendly way to search that, have a keyword search function, I think that'd be a well used.
You could just OCR it pretty quickly too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
maybe I could just do that. That'll take 2 steps.
But I mean, it
Um,
hasn't been updated.
no, it hasn't been
So
updated for a long time.
Into it, some buildings are probably here in unfortunately,
Yeah.
so there's lots that we gather.
So that's a big one. Coordination with Taste Newberg on tourism marketing related to historic resources. If that's something we want to pursue, we can definitely invite Lido Needing to speak with everyone about how that, what that could be and what that might look like.
I think that's pretty low hanging fruit, just, I know a lot, but I'm on their board too, so I hope there's not like a conflict of interest, because I'm on like, I think boards of
If-
things that overlap with the work. of
Oh,
this
yeah.
commission.
If there's a specific vote or something, you'll just
Okay.
declare.
Right, but I think that would also be a great one. They have a super functional website that's being revamped, and there's lots of functionality there to add promotion for historic things. I think there's just a lack of knowledge. It is new to the community. Tourists are new to the community, obviously, so it's that advocacy and that promotion piece that we really love it for, because of all of the infrastructure for that.
My understanding for conflicts, if there was something where we were responsible for doling out money to an organization that you worked with,
Right.
yeah, then you
Yeah.
would need to step aside on that vote.
Of course, yeah.
You know. And I guess if maybe it could work the other way. I don't know, just trying to think through like my thing with Park,
Right.
where, you know, I need to declare it, but like I'm not involved in the decision. If you were on a decision-making body that was handing us money, that could be seen as a conflict of interest on their side.
Right.
As a commission, it's also good to do disclosures for things like if you have ex parte communication. So basically ask yourself when items come forward, do you have information about something, especially if you're making a decision to approve or deny type of a thing? Do you have information that the other members of your commission don't have? That's ex parte. So you need to disclose those things.
And we're still a small enough community that often it's gonna come
Yeah.
up, you know, you talk to somebody about it. And that doesn't necessarily ever disqualify us, but we need to share that.
That's right. You need to just declare it and just say, I won't be biased.
It could,
If
but
that
it
is true.
doesn't necessarily
Mhm.
disqualify. It's good to talk to your people about.
That's great. And obviously you guys can see we've got signage is an option on there. That's something that I know our local historical society has worked on in the past.
Absolutely, still looking for just about.
Yay!
this round, yeah, just picked our last photos, we just have to get it
So
formatted.
yes, oh, I'm glad to hear that. I was on the board of our local historical society for a long time too, and I'm not now, but it's a great thing. But interpretive signage, there's a lot of requests for things like that around the town.
Rick, the former chair for this commission, he stated, if you look at it, all the other items category as opposed to the higher priority items, a lot of those are signage because they're not eligible for grants.
Mhm.
So that was some of the thinking. So if you notice that pattern, there's a lot of signage on one list and
Yeah.
not so much on the other.
They're not eligible for CLG grants,
CLG grants.
but they might be eligible for other
So
ones.
I think that his indication was more or less, that was low hanging fruit for CLG grants. So
Mhm.
those things that seem maybe less feasible, less likely, or less easy, stick them on the other list. Keep the other stuff that's higher
Yeah.
feasibility as well as a priority on the priority list.
Yeah, and then let me move to the next page here. These were some of the other goals here, other grant opportunities, trainings. This cultural center signage program on Blaine Street is not happening anymore. That turned into our public arts council. So yes, and then
What is
Yeah.
digital?
that is all the things that we had on the website that are hard to find.
Oh,
So that includes, there's a walking tour on there that several of the houses on it are no longer standing. There are a few other things like that that we can consider.
That and on the previous page, the educational
Mhm.
aspects that I talked about.
Yep.
Can you go back to the previous page,
Yeah,
please?
of course.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, too many pages.
Yeah, educational material for
Mhm.
performing, I think there's overlap there, and since most people are going to be looking online instead of, looking at
Mhm.
print material,
Mhm.
those two could be combined, but I'd like to see it elevated.
Mhm.
And I know that this was something that was done in 21, but I would really like to confer with my team members here to talk about upgrading that into an active goal, because I think there's a lot of overlap in all of these goals.
Mhm.
Well, I think there's overlap, and I think there's specifically with the other topic section, there's overlap with what other organizations are already doing. So how can we partner with those organizations so we're not duplicating work?
Yeah.
That's all, like thinking from the user standpoint, that's irritating to see there's 4 or 5 different websites that all have the same or, maybe slightly conflicting information. So how can we make sure we work with Taste Newberg and with the Downtown Coalition and Historical Society, so we all have similar historic information or resources or something, because this work is kind of being done by other groups, so let's not really that we don't have to, right?
There we go. Yeah. So wayfinding, National Register lists. That's the old council goals on there, I think. I was just looking at that. I'm like, that's an old one. But yes, customer service, the council just passed our new customer service goals. So it's really exciting. So those are the old goals.
Yeah,
No.
what I'm thinking. If we meet 4 times a year, in this case, would it make sense and would there be capacity both from us and you all? For us to go back. Digest this, think about this, it feels like this gives us a lot of good working stuff, but like, how do we want to come back together in a month and a half and kind of start to really crystallize what our order and what our 5-year plan is? Does that seem reasonable, and does that seem feasible on your end?
I think it seems feasible, especially since this is kind of a passion project of mine too, so I enjoy doing it, but I think that is reasonable and possible. Are you talking about like just 1 or 2 extra meetings, or do we want to move to a monthly or every other month schedule for this?
At this point, my thought is really just a meeting.
Okay.
Rather than create, but I don't want to create a new structure until we really decide that's what's right for us, so you had other things going on, this year, I'm just stepping in, I'm the new president of the Newberg Old Fashioned Festival, and that's take up a lot of time.
Congratulations.
It's a lot of fun, but it takes up a lot of time. So, yeah, we want to be mindful of that. I don't want to just say, hey, let's have monthly meetings.
Yep.
But coming back in a month or so, whatever works for schedules, to take this and I think take that really strong work and make it our 5-year plan.
It's basically a work session where we really dive deep into some of these topics and flesh it out.
Well, that was part of my questioning about the every 3 months, because I remember going through all these lists and prior to prioritizing and everything, and now we're looking at redoing all that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, and that's,
that's fine, but I think we should.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
It might have been because of COVID or whatever, but it just seems like, the last couple of years that we were working on this, there was. We would go through some pretty broad things and talk with our liaison person in the city about that, Doug, and then he and his staff would go off and do some things. But we never really engaged in the work, and I expected when I first was appointed on this, that I would actually be doing some work. Whether it's grant writing or, working on some projects that would be supportive of the city. If that's not how it's done, then, that wasn't.
That can be how it's done, and I'm very happy to hear that. So,
Staff doesn't mind assigning you homework.
yes. Well, great, we can change that. No problem. Oh, like I said, I taught at college level. I know how to give homework.
Going to every other month, that's only 2 additional meetings a year, or even 4, that's 6 years every other month. I think that could be beneficial, especially since we all seem to want to put in time to work, and if we could use those maybe off, those every other months, do a more formal meeting on the regular months, and then do like a work session where we'll maybe come in to do some of that work on the new days, but whatever that looks like, I think more meetings would be beneficial because we want.
That makes me very happy to hear, actually. I think that's a positive movement. So is that something you guys want to decide right now, or would you like to just schedule one further meeting right now and then move forward? I guess it's the chair can schedule meetings, so, but you guys can choose as a body too.
But yeah, if they talk about it tonight, you have the opportunity to ask them.
Yes.
to, if,
Yes.
you know, so
Yeah,
if
when-
like
when-
six, if
When we
6
want,
weeks.
when we want to have our, let's say a month, what's a month from now?
Yep, and I can tell you how that conflicts with other public
Yeah,
meetings too,
and-
so,
Benefit of the staff liaison you've got.
Changing meeting times is always fraught because everybody has their own personal, plus, yeah, you know, everybody gets used to, or structurally, organizationally. We need to be mindful that there's a workflow that
Mhm.
staff are used to with quarterly meetings.
And
You know, it's a little bit different, it's less intense, but I was on the school board for many years. I was the chair of the school board, and I was reminded of the board, like, we didn't really do any work. We did a lot of work. We had, but what we did is we made work for other people. And
Mhm.
I tried to remind us, we can make good work or we can make bad work. And let's make sure we make good work.
Mhm. And while this board makes work for us, you are very welcome to engage in more of the work, and just to be very clear about
We will
that.
strive to make good work.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the things to think about, I mean, I know for nonprofits, there are boards and things like that. Sometimes you have decision-making boards and other times you have working boards.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily do the same thing. And if we don't have the bandwidth to do what you're asking, we will do our best to tell you that.
Mhm.
As opposed to not telling you at this meeting, but then showing up the next one without whatever it is you asked for.
Yeah, we will tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
If we're looking 1 month out, on just the last Tuesday of March would be the 26th. There is no public meeting that week actually at all, so
Is that spring break?
that is spring break.
I'll be in Seattle.
All right, well then let's not mess with spring break. The week before that, we could potentially meet, and let me check one other meeting calendar. We have some options, but we could potentially meet on the 19th or the 21st or the 22nd.
The other thing I want to say, if you wanted to land yourselves right in between your two quarterly meetings, you'd be at about April 9th. or so.
Yeah, we could also look out there.
But that wouldn't be kind of like, typically you're the fourth Tuesday of a
Mhm.
given month when you meet.
What about March 21st?
March 21st. That evening works on the public meeting schedule and this room schedule, which is the other key.
Work for us.
Okay, so we're gonna do a March 21st at 7. Would you guys like the 7 p.m. time, or would you prefer a 6 p.m. or something earlier?
That's what I was just gonna ask, what time works for folks?
I'm on the way.
It's 10:30.
7 something.
Yeah.
All right, I will get that meeting scheduled for you guys then. So it sounds like at that meeting, you kind of want to do a strategic planning session.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with running those. I'd be happy to walk you guys through a strategic planning session or defer to our chair or vice chair to do so. But if you let me know what you would like to happen at that meeting, we can make it happen.
I think before that meeting, I need to really understand where, like, all the assets are. Like,
Okay,
I need to understand where to find information so that I can really dig deep and be prepared before we start to have a discussion.
all right. I will get as much information pulled together about this commission, the powers and duties, all of that for you guys and send that out.
That'd be great. This 5-year plan, I think. Also goes-
Yeah, there's a lot more so we can share. Yes, and Clay and I were just discussing that I don't actually even have all that documentation yet, because we're just starting to make that switch, so. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna.
But making sure you have it at a minimum or at kind of hot items to take a look at would be this list, which this is from request for council action, which is the term we use for staff reports that go to city council, because often they're asking for an action. And so it's a relatively short read. If you wanted to go in deeper on how did we get there, it would be going through multiple sets of minutes from the Historic Preservation Commission. And it's really up to you on its face, like, are these still priorities for the community and for this commission?
Mhm.
So that's on its face. And do they align with things like city council goals or the needs of the community?
Was this aligned at all with the visioning group that occurred?
The Visioning 2020, I don't think so. I have read that visioning document several times. There's the only thing that correlates with it is the George Fox project, because I specifically correlated it for the grant we received at George Fox.
Some like signage or like the public art program. I
Yes.
facilitated the like arts and culture wing of that, and I feel like there
Yes.
was a little bit.
There was a
I don't
little bit
think
with
it was
public art too. So the Newberg Public Art Council did some with that as well. We can definitely give you that information so you can look at it and see if that,
Some of
yep,
to the
mhm.
visioning document, that would be great.
Yep.
I was on that planning committee too, and I just don't remember if there was overlap. It seemed to me that there was, but I'm.
Yes. There are some drawings by my children in that document. I love it.
Might wanna highlight that.
I know, I think it's very important. They'd be like, oh, mom, we're a lot older than that now. But, so that's a great one. Okay, so I'll send you as much commission information, those council goals, the visioning document, so you guys can familiarize yourself and start brainstorming. How would you like to run that next meeting?
The next meeting,
Mhm.
well, I was thinking probably set a time to meet with you and we'll work on an
Yep.
agenda.
That works great.
And I don't know if that'd be just you and Clay, what would be the best combination there?
I'm happy to.
You can always invite me as an optional attendee. If I'm open, I'll do it, but that way
Perfect.
it's not too many people trying to manage too many schedules.
All right, I will set up and send you an email so we can start scheduling that. And we
Right
can-
now, Fridays and Saturdays are my days off, so
Okay.
Fridays I'm generally available.
Okay. I will look at a couple of Fridays. My schedule's actually not too bad, so. And then are there any community stakeholders we want to make sure get an invitation to come and weigh in on that? Or is that something you guys want to think about at this point or wait until a later point?
Personally, I need to see the documents and see who's invested into this before I can even answer them.
Perfect.
I was gonna say the same thing. I love the idea, like, yeah, let's have people come, but I don't feel prepared yet to like.
So that might be one
Yeah,
more step out.
yeah.
All right,
I
all right.
see that as where we're going, but not at our next.
You do have
Perfect.
2 external organizations that are noted on your work program.
Mhm.
So you don't necessarily have to invite them. But if you as an individual or whatever wanted to reach out to them.
Mhm.
Say, are you
So,
still working
yeah.
on this? What have you?
Keeping in mind, we've tonight discussed the Downtown Coalition, Taste Newberg, and the Historical Society. So those are 3 of the stakeholders that I envisioned, but yes, I understand that. Let's have a meeting, think about where we want to go, and then,
It's not supposed to be there.
and they could always show up without being invited because these meetings are open, but
And
yeah,
I'm on the board of 2 of those.
Yes, so-
This information is gonna be relayed to them.
Which 2 taste Newberg?
Case Newberg and Historical Society.
Mhm.
And I used to work for the Downtown Coalition. I don't anymore, but.
Mhm.
connected
Yeah,
to them.
yeah. Again, it's a small town.
Yes.
Right.
you can't escape, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's that. All right, so it sounds like we're gonna have a work meeting on those goals. All right. This is the rest of our agenda. So the next item was just an update from Clay and I about staff coverage of this commission. We briefly went over that. When Doug retired in November, we looked at all the commissions that department was over. My computer's dying. And we made some decisions to spread some things out. Because of my background in historical preservation and historical work, Will thought that I would be so Will's our city manager. He thought that I would be a good fit for this commission. I love this kind of work. So he asked if I'd be interested, and we had several conversations with planning and the community development department and our brand new director last week
Mhm.
about how we want to continue this. And what we've come up with is Clay and I will work together on this. I will take the primary role and Clay will kind of be my backup. Our city manager really wants to get his hands in here too, because he thinks it's fascinating. So you may see him pop in at meetings sometimes as well. He keeps telling me he'll take it on so I can take a break, but I'm like, it's okay. So you'll see us here. I mentioned this is my background just so you guys can know who I am. I have a master's degree in early American United States history. I was an archivist for 8 years at George Fox, as well as teaching history and liberal arts courses there. I then worked at the State Historic Preservation Office, and then I worked for the Public Art Council here in Newberg for a little while. So I've been on the board of the Historical Society, Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Area Coalition, which is where Britta works now, and a few other organizations doing similar work. So I am very invested in history and have done a lot of this type of work professionally and as a volunteer for years. So that's why we thought, yeah, let's just have me work with you guys.
Awesome.
So I'm really excited. So if I will try really hard to be staff receiving input, but I get very excited about this because this is something I love. So
No, yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, at our last meeting, the word group is the one that kept getting used, and there's a real strong positive energy with folks and staff who are interested. So I think it's awesome.
So I see you giving us a lot more input, the last lady there, not
Yeah.
disparaging by any means, but she was just there to record.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So I like to, I mean, this is just something I really love. So, yeah.
And the community development department is still gonna be around. So for example, part of the role of the Historic Preservation Commission is when there are cases or applications going on that come to the city for a permit to do something that modifies historic landmark, to de-designate historic landmark or to create historic landmark, it goes to the Historic Preservation Commission. And so that's part of your quasi judicial role where you're deciding whether or not you support something or don't support something, and then usually it goes to the city council after that for a final decision.
Mhm.
But you're evaluating that as the local experts in Historic Preservation Commission for historic resources.
When's the last time we actually got an application?
I don't remember the last time we had an application, but Rick indicated that in the last 11 years, we've had 3.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Recipe was one of the last ones.
Right. So not very frequently, which was one of the reasons we thought you have a unique city recorder who has a background that is much more tailored than most jurisdictions have the luxury of having. So that seems a good fit. And we're frankly just not doing that many quasi judicial things, which is where you would engage planning. So it made that transition make sense. Although when we talked to Curry previously, I asked her, how many other jurisdictions have their city recorder administering their Historic Preservation Commission in Oregon? And she said, don't worry, that's an easy number. It's 0.
Yep, so it will
So-
now be
We're
one.
doing it, but we're in a unique circumstance with unique skills where there's that high level of knowledge and appreciation. And so that's there. Now that is coming from some unique places too,
Mhm.
where there are unique cultural resources that historic preservation commissions don't always consider that are probably highly important to Rachel. They're certainly highly important to our city manager, former library director. And those are some of the things about our history that come in the decisions, that come in the news, in our communications, and our archives, and things like that. But those are a different form of historic preservation that some commissions often don't touch, but those are something that are gonna be very near and dear to your staff liaisons.
Yeah, like-
But they're valid.
If you went to Sherwood or Bend or Joseph, they'd say,
Mhm.
hey, we can put your historic commission underneath the city.
Recorder.
Like, what? Yeah,
Right.
but it made sense in this situation.
Yeah.
So that's why I was explaining my background and qualifications there. I was gonna share that, was it Lake Oswego? Yes, Lake Oswego did a very cool project that was photo related for from their Historic Preservation Commission.
Right.
They have a, content DM, which is an online repository. It's like the Digital Commons at George Fox. And it's an online repository of their digital photos. And they did this beautiful, digital archive that they shared with the whole community. So we can be really creative. And do other things. And I promise not to push our archives too much. That's just my first love.
And
Uh,
but the reason,
That's a great idea, because I, just as an example, I went to Cameo Sunday, I guess I was
Mhm.
there, the church bought out the Cameo, and I already
Yeah.
forgot the name of the movie, but anyway, before that, and it maybe, that's the first time I've ever been in Cameo,
Oh, yeah.
and they made me do that the whole time, but before the movie started, they had all these old reels of
Mhm.
that was just neat. I just
Isn't that
love
neat?
seeing them.
yeah, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of different ways to care about history. So that's why it's important not to just historic preservation commissions often focus on, and it's not that it's inappropriate, but historic sites and landmarks, so things and structures.
Mhm.
But that's not the only thing that
Yeah.
people care about.
So we can think big at our next meeting. The other staff update is that you will all be getting notifications over the next month about your SEI filing, which is your statement of economic interest filing. You guys are all registered in the system. Now you'll just need to go in and actually file your report. You'll be getting emailed instructions about that. So make sure you're checking both your city and your personal emails. It's whichever one you use to register. I always use city email as well because for official records purposes, we want to make sure to use that. And with my reporter hat on, I'm going to say, please, please, please use your city email because you don't want your personal email affiliated with official government records. You just don't want that. Because you don't want people diving into your personal emails for public records requests. So, and we will have to. So, use your city email as much as you can. I will try to send out reminders to check it every once in a while, especially if I've sent something, but if you can, that'd be great. And if you need help getting back into it, let me know.
So are you gonna send meeting requests out? Are you gonna initiate that?
Yeah, I can send you a meeting request. Yep.
So
Mhm.
between the next meeting, I'll meet with Rachel, we'll talk about an agenda and kind of some higher level things. We'll come together on the 21st.
Yep.
And you're gonna send out a meeting about that.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Great.
I think that was it. So now it's items from any of you guys before we close.
So all of our meetings now forward will be in person if we want. Will there still be a
Yes.
Zoom option?
There will always be a Zoom option. That's a legal requirement in the state. But in person is open again. And I love
Yeah.
meeting in
No, I-
person. So
I do too. It's a lot.
It really helps the energy.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
passion come out, it's a lot easier to find. people, but-
yes, behind the screen. But if you ever need the Zoom option for any reason, it's always going to be available. If you choose to use the Zoom option, I ask you to let me know and make sure you change your name to yours so I know it's you, so I can add you to the meeting. That can be a challenge sometimes, but that's always going to be an option. And then we take these recordings and we post them on the website afterwards so people can hear what we talked about. So,
And yeah, this little thing is really cool. I've never
Isn't it
been to a
cool?
meeting like this,
yeah.
One of the upsides to COVID is the like before they existed, virtual meetings, but it wasn't like a real thing.
Mhm.
And now it just is.
Yeah, this is the meeting out. This is the first actual full meeting we've used it for.
So my
But-
question is, what triggers, okay, so like right now it's looking at me and Deb and you, like what triggers it to look around the room?
Yeah, it hears our voices. So
Yeah.
it's a speaker, microphone, and camera all in one.
Yeah.
And it's plugs directly into Zoom or meeting,
'Cause
Google Meet.
I tried
It's
using
really
my
easy.
hand one time and it didn't come look at me, so it sound.
It
I think
sounds,
so. That's why I did the tap.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if it reset, but I don't know.
it does, sometimes it takes a few seconds of talking before it resets.
Not too.
And I can also set it so that it will ignore parts of the room. I can set it to focus on a speaker. It's really fun.
No,
Cool.
For a bigger space, you really have to project at it. I use them often for meetings and meetings in about this size room, and when you're on the edges, you really have to yell at it, but for things like this. It's perfect.
Yeah. So sometimes we may use the full room setup in here. I got here tonight and discovered it had not been set up, so I went and grabbed this one. But for this type of meeting, this is just a
Yeah.
comfortable setup and it works really well. So
Mhm.
yeah, glad you like it. This was one of the first purchases I requested when I started because I love using these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is great for the circulation committee.
Yeah, it's really simple.
So any updates from the commissioners? Any of you have anything you wanted to share with your fellows?
I feel like we've probably shared everything, but is there anything anybody wants to share before we adjourn?
I'm just happy we're actually gonna maybe doing some work.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Seriously, I agree with you. I joined this and then we didn't do anything. It was like, well, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Well, let's do better then. Okay.
I think that's a really positive note, and with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.